Welcome back. In a democracy, there's give and take when the government does some big things. And right now, the Trump administration, according to it, is doing lots of big things, and the public agrees. And there has been some answering back to members of Congress about the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, and cuts to the federal workforce. Here's how some Republicans have either responded or heard from their constituents during either in-person or tele-town halls.
This is counterproductive, and it hasn't been it hasn't gone the direction that we would like to see it.
It's completely legal, or we wouldn't be doing it. Elon is an advisor. Every president has unelected, unconfirmed private advisors.
Elon Musk has contracts with the federal government. But he is also, I think, doing an effective job.
Conflict of interest! Show me!
I want to bring in our reporter panel. Shelby Talcott is White House correspondent for Semafor. Jasmine Wright, a reporter for NOTUS. That's News of the U.S. NOTUS. Got that? So, Shelby, you have new reporting on what the president did just today, another executive order related to the Department of Government Efficiency. What did he do? What does it mean?
Yeah, this is essentially continuing to give DOGE more power over the federal government, and this particular executive order directs agencies to implement DOGE's cost-cutting efforts. So it says that agencies will begin to make public their travel plans and expenses as much as possible. It also directs them to start cost-cutting efforts. And so this is just really the latest executive order in a slew of executive orders that the president has signed in recent weeks, giving DOGE more power.
And for any federal worker that I've met, they never travel first class. They don't travel business class. They travel coach. So I suppose this will be of some interest. And the idea, what is that there's some great waste going on within federal traveling or scheduling of meetings and whatnot?
Yeah, the White House's argument is this is essentially one small step in the overarching effort to root out fraud, waste, and abuse. And another part of this executive order is directing agencies to find that waste, fraud, and abuse and report back to the federal government on what they can essentially continue cutting.
Jasmine, from your perch at the White House and your visibility across Washington, how do you think all this is landing so far?
Well, I think that there is some confusion about exactly what DOGE is doing and what their purpose is. I think that's why you saw Elon today kind of holding court at the cabinet meeting with President Trump and describing himself as kind of a highbrow IT services that DOGE is specifically focused on technology, but also goes into waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, I think that one thing is clear is that even though they may have found things that people view wasteful, that could go to foreign aid, that can go to certain different things, they haven't actually identified things that are fraudulent in the actual term of the word. So I think that there's potentially some confusion. I think we saw Republican lawmakers go home last week and, as in that video, be faced with some real pushback as to what they're doing and what kind of all the calamity is around the federal government. And I think you also saw President Trump acknowledge, while maybe most of the cabinet really likes what Elon is doing, there are some that disagree, despite the White House really making an effort to downplay that reporting, that people were surprised about the email asking people to identify 5 things that they did or other actions taken by DOGE. And so I think it's a kind of a mix. Now, the White House wants to say that it's really successful, but I'm not sure that that is exactly true when you go out into the rest of the country. And I'm not sure that lawmakers feel that that's exactly true.
And Shelby, what I find fascinating is the White House could, in this conversation, say the following. Well, we're going to send all the things that Elon has found to Congress, have them put it in an appropriations bill, and we'll get those things knocked out when we refund the government on March 14th when funding expires. We'll put that in a continuing resolution or whatever the appropriations vehicle is. That's wide open terrain to them. And yet I don't hear them saying that.
Yeah, what's actually really interesting about that is there have been lawmakers who have raised this. They've said eventually at some point DOGE cuts are going to need a vote in Congress. And I actually asked the president a week ago if that was something that they would be interested in. And he said to me that he wouldn't mind it if lawmakers feel it's necessary, but he also sort of started to lament about why would Republican lawmakers feel that it was necessary. So I'm curious to see if push comes to shove, if that actually ends up happening and if the president ends up actually being okay with it.
Because, Jasmine, that is a process where if you want to be funding the government and you want to avoid a shutdown, and if there are these things that you mentioned are politically hard to defend or problematic to defend, you can get 60 votes in the Senate on that, if in fact they are what the president says they are.
Yeah, and I think that you've seen a Republican conference that's really willing to give into Trump's will and give him what he is asking for, not just on his cabinet, but of course the bill that just passed in the House last night. So yeah, President Trump might have to, but I think this is also a major part of him really expanding that presidential power and actually kind of poking the courts to step in and try to expand what he can do via executive order. They don't really want to go to Congress. What they want to do is allow President Trump to do what he wants to do unilaterally. And
by executive power,
by executive power. And so I think that that is more of the motivation or more of the push to some of these executive orders that are most likely going to end up in the courts.
Shelby, it's often said in another context, we have the receipts. Well, there's a page that the Department of Government Efficiency posts on X that counts $65 billion. The Wall Street Journal has said it's nowhere near that. It's fractionally that amount. So at some point, these things are going to have to get beyond the advertising and get into the realm of the real.
Yeah, this is, we're a month in to a long process. DOGE is technically supposed to go through 2026. So I'm curious to see what happens. But also, we've heard Elon Musk on more than one occasion now talk about how because they're moving so quickly, they're going to make mistakes and they'll rectify those mistakes. Now, we have seen them make some mistakes and quietly rectify them. What we haven't really seen is him come out and address a lot of those errors up front. And so the big question is, how are they going to continue addressing those? Is there going to be more transparency when they make mistakes? And ultimately, this is kind of Elon Musk's MO historically. He goes in, he breaks things. This is how he does things. Of course, it is different when you're dealing with the federal government, but he's acknowledged that mistakes are going to be made. Again, though, we're working with the federal government.
Shelby Talcott, Jasmine Wright, thank you very much. Great to have you with us.